have this passage from Mike Johnson declaring that our rights do not derive from government. They come from you, our creator and heavenly father. Is this him putting God over the Declaration of Independence? McKay?
Well, I actually think that idea is not wholly uncommon. I mean, the idea that we have certain inalienable rights that come from God can be read in a fairly benign way, which is basically that we have innate human rights that our Constitution and our government, our democratic government, are meant to codify, right? That idea is not totally abnormal. I think that the thing that might alarm some people is some of the rhetoric that we heard at this rally that we are in a spiritual battle, right? That the forces of good and evil are at work here, and that partisan politics is injected directly into the spiritual biblical rhetoric. We have heard that for the last couple of years. It's been ratcheted up more and more, especially since Donald Trump lost in 2020. And it can lead to some pretty dangerous places if it's not kept in check.
Yeah, and I understand what they're saying with that, because you don't want to get into a theocracy, right? But I did want to read this before we see the response from Mike Johnson, because all he did was read from the Declaration of Independence. And it does say, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their creator with certain unalienable rights. Unalienable, meaning that you cannot tell people what to do, or how to live, right? There are certain rights that we just have being human. Some of us, right? Because I'm still on that, right? We live in a country. Hey, Spud, thanks for joining this morning. We live in a country where it says all men are created equal, and yet we have civil rights for people because they weren't accepted as human. Now, obviously, that was prior. No, that was after. No, that was after 1776 and during 1776 and prior to 1776. So prior to the Constitution being codified, right? People were not being treated as human beings. And then once it was codified, they still weren't being treated as human beings. And then we had to create civil rights so they would be treated as human beings, instead of saying, hey, these individuals have the same rights that it says in our Declaration of Independence. Again, we need to really have an honest conversation about that. Really, really honest. But I thought it was really sad that this reporter did not understand the Declaration of Independence. It says what it says. But what I really like, what it does continue to say, because people kind of stop right there. And what I like, what it says, is that in here, it says, let me see, but when a long train of abuses and usurpations going around, right, pursuing invariably the same object and license and designed to reduce them under absolute despotism, it is their right, it is their duty to throw off such government and to provide new guards for their future security. Such has been the patient sufferance of these colonies. Yes. And such is now the necessary which constrains them to alter the former systems of government. The history of the present King of Great Britain is a history of repeated injuries and usurpations, all having the direct object the establishment of absolute tyranny over these states. To prove this, let facts be submitted to a candid world. But what I meant to read prior to that was, prudence indeed, will dictate that governments long established should not be changed for light of transit causes, and accordingly all experience rather in while evils are sufferable. Where is the part that I was looking for? Right to liberty and the pursuit of happiness. Okay. That to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, derive their just powers from the consent of the governed. So we're the governed, and we are basically giving them consent to be in government, right? We're saying this is okay. It's a mutual conversation. That whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or abolish it and to institute new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. So basically, when they get out of control, we have the absolute right to rein them in. And I think that's happening. There are certain people that lost their primaries. They may not get elected. But this is a reminder to those in government who think they just rule over us. You don't have rule, you serve us. We've given consent under this declaration. And so a lot of times when people are like, yeah, we need to throw this out there, don't do that. We have protections with this document. Why do you think people are rushing to get over here? They're not killing themselves to get over here for nothing. But my problem is when they get over here, they bring them with them. Yeah, you bring that dictator mentality with you. So it's for me, you can go back to the country where there's dictatorship and live there and fix it. By the way, you can go home. But if you are not about upholding the laws of this country, you can go. But again, let's check out this response from Speaker Mike Johnson.
We had the Rededicate 250 event on the National Mall. It was really an extraordinary thing. Many thousands of Americans came out to participate in that. An historic event. It was a welcome opportunity to recommit ourselves to the cause that our founders fought and died for 250 years ago. And sadly, too many young Americans are no longer taught the moral and religious foundations of our extraordinary country. And that is the source of our greatness, the reason we became the most free, most successful, most powerful, most benevolent nation in the history of the world. But evidently some in the mainstream media missed all that history lesson as well. And I just wanted to comment, it was brought to my attention yesterday that MS Now, formerly MSNBC, mocked me in a big segment they had. And the reason they mocked me was because in my remarks, I led the prayer of rededication on the mall. I stated the self-evident truth that our rights do not derive from government, they derive from our Creator. And they had this entire segment about how ridiculous that was and what a crazy notion, and isn't Johnson such a crazy fundamentalist, et cetera. The best part is I was literally quoting from the Declaration of Independence. So let me take this opportunity. I want to just direct my friends in the mainstream media to the second paragraph of our nation's birth certificate, the Declaration, which remains the most foundational and consequential sentence in all of American history. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. They're endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, among others the rights to life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. It shouldn't be too much to ask that the people who talk about politics on TV, on a network that millions of Americans tune into, have a basic understanding of America's political foundations. I hope this serves as a friendly reminder to every American that the best civic education is not from your favorite TV anchor or late night host, okay? It comes from our founding documents. You ought to go read the Declaration and the Constitution and the Federalist Papers and the other foundational texts that shape and guide our country. And as we approach the 250th birthday of the greatest nation in history, I encourage all of us to revisit those founding documents. It's really important. It's really important. The founders believed that in order to keep a constitutional republic, to maintain the republic, you had to have an informed and engaged electorate. The people, a government of, by, and for the people ourselves. The people have to be engaged. They have to know basic civics. They got to know their foundations. And quite clearly, we need that review. At least some in the media do. Okay.
Yeah, and see, they got rid of civics a long time ago for